Welcome back to the InGoal Radio Podcast. You've got a new host this week. It's Woody. As if you don't get sick enough of hearing me talk all the time anyways, along with Hutch. The NHL schedule is wreaking havoc on goalies and goalie health. It is wreaking havoc on the InGoal Radio Podcast, both in terms of our time to get guests lined up, but also our chances of getting the three of us together. So this week, Darren couldn't make it. You've got me. You've got Hutch. We've still got a great show. Our NHL Sense Arena feature guest, Daryl Reaugh, recently inducted into the media portion of the Hall of Fame, Foster Hewitt Memorial Award winner. We had a great conversation with Daryl, of course, color commentator of the Dallas Stars, played for the Edmonton Oilers, has a Stanley Cup ring. We get into all kinds of great stories with him in our feature interview presented by NHL Sense Arena. But first, do you know that today is an anniversary, Hutch? As we record this?
I did not know that. I'm embarrassed because you're going to get me on something I should know, aren't you?
Well, something we need to discuss. Because there are a lot of teams around the league right now. We talked about the injuries in the schedule, but there are also a lot of teams around the league right now, or a handful, that are just looking for a save. And on this day, exactly 1 year ago, the Colorado Avalanche decided to completely redo their NHL goaltending, trading for Mackenzie Blackwood and Scott Wedgwood, the Woodshed, as they call them.
The Woodshed.
At the cost of Justus Annunen, Alexander Georgiev, who was in the news this week for terminating his contract with Buffalo to go back to the KHL, Kovalenko, a second, a fifth, and a sixth. So we hear a lot about everybody's re-signing their guys, and it's hard to make deals. This is a Stanley Cup contending team that completely rebuilt their goaltending on basically one fell swoop, changed the starter and the backup, and here we are a year later. Scott Wedgwood is killing it as Mackenzie Blackwood comes back or works his way back from injury and back into more regular playing time. And to celebrate the anniversary, guess what? In back-to-back games, they both pitched shutouts over the weekend.
Hindsight is 20/20, though, isn't it? Doesn't it seem like such an obvious play, and now everybody's pointing fingers at one or two other NHL teams? Why can't you just do the same thing? It certainly wasn't guaranteed to work out for them.
It helps when you're playing behind a good team, too, for sure.
No, for sure. Absolutely it does. And I'm not suggesting they could have brought anybody in and it would have been successful. I'm just saying, there's a reason the other teams were willing to let those guys go. Like, it's not a guarantee when you pick somebody up that is going to work for you. So it's a little tough to point fingers and say, why can't anybody else do it? Although I do tend to sit on that side of the fence a little bit. Why can't we make a few things happen and shake things up a little bit here, people?
Well, you have to take that risk. Like you said, it was a risk. Things weren't going well in Nashville for the team or for Scott Wedgwood. So they were looking to make a change. Blackwood was more of a, hey, not going to be part of the long-term picture here in San Jose. And for sure, there's less of those situations out there right now, maybe. But take a look at, who else is near the top of the NHL? At least my numbers, adjusted stats, and I think on most of the NHL.com counting numbers as well. Some guy named Spencer Knight. There's Chicago taking a shot at a guy who had a ton of pedigree, wasn't going to get the opportunity in Florida. And look what he's done for the Chicago Blackhawks. So it can be done. I'm not saying it's easy to do, but it can be done.
Haven't we said before that the sport, and in particular the management in the sport, is very risk averse?
Absolutely.
Most people want to say, I tried everything I can without taking a big gamble.
And the reality is it's a tough to predict position. That's just the reality. But I think in Blackwood's case, in Knight's case, you've got pedigree that comes with it. And in Wedgwood's case, we've seen him have success. He was really good in Dallas. And so it's not like he was the only thing not working out in Nashville last season. So I look at some of the underlying numbers on them, and these are guys who had a track record that said it was worth that risk. And the risk is paying off right now.
If I can just jump on my soapbox here for a second. I love that you just said track record, and I hate when people talk about pedigree. Because track record is basing a decision on the results of the goaltender in question. And so often pedigree, people will say, well, he was a first-round draft pick. He's worth a shot. All that means is that some scouts, when the kid was playing junior or NCAA or something, really liked him. That doesn't mean that anything's happened in between. But the results and somebody having the ability to interpret what they've done over their previous seasons at whatever level, that's different. That's a track record.
Well, for me, pedigree, when I say pedigree, it's not just draft history. I think of Spencer Knight going straight out of the NCAA to having success in the National Hockey League early on. I think of World Junior Championships, under pressure, in the moment, in the spotlight, having an opportunity.
It's track record to me, that's all. I'm getting into semantics probably.
Don't semantics me, Hutch. I'm the king of semantics. Come on.
That's just good track record. And my guess is if you were looking at that, advising those teams, you would have had some concrete things beside, look, he's won at this level and come up early and so on. I think you would have had some very specific things about how he plays the game that would suggest to you that he could be a good shot.
Well, Spencer Knight, right? Like, I think if you're a goalie guy, you love watching, or a goalie person, you love watching Spencer Knight play, right? Like, just the technical, the eye test has always been there for Spencer Knight. Interestingly enough, some of the adjusted numbers weren't, even in the early days with Florida. Like it was environment. But when you watched him play, when you talked to him, you're like, this should work. And so it's nice to see him getting an opportunity to make it work in Chicago as they sort of take a stride as an organization. Better defensive structure in front of him this year that wasn't there when he first came to Chicago last year, and he's doing a great job behind it. So really, really fun to watch sort of this next generation. And it brings me to another question I have for you. The value of mentorship. We've lost in the last 5 or 6 years, like all these high-end number one longtime goalies that were, we think of Corey Schneider coming into the league and having Roberto Luongo there. I've talked to guys around the league about the importance, Jussi Saros and Pekka Rinne. And yet, for a lot of these guys coming in now, I mean, Spencer would have had Bob in Florida, but for a lot of these guys coming in now, like we've sort of lost this whole generation of these, in a lot of cases, Henrik Lundqvist, Hall of Famers, right? To sort of help mentor those guys along. So it's an interesting challenge, because I know there are some goalie coaches in the league that feel it's really important in your first couple of years to sort of have that guy around you. I talked actually with Jake Ottinger about this week about Ben Bishop. It's not technical, it's not tactical, it's the life, the pressure, all the other things that come with being, a starting goaltender in the National Hockey League.
Well, and then just take the opposite. How many times have you mentioned that guys, less nowadays, but guys just get mired down in the East Coast League as young prospects and they have nobody. They've got another young prospect with them and no goaltending coach to help work with them. I've often said mentorship is huge, right, for young goalies. I praise programs that bring the older goaltenders into development programs to help the young kids and give them somebody they can talk to. How often do we say it's important to have somebody who speaks the language, who understands what we're going through as goaltenders? And might even talk about some of that in the parents segment today. Who knows? I often, though, in addition to mentorship, because it's going to depend on who the individual is, obviously, the pairing. Is somebody ready for it? Is somebody a good mentor beyond just being there? There has to be a little bit of an insulation factor, no? And I mean that only in the sense that a team is able to, like, you could play Corey Schneider when he came into Vancouver in a very careful, controlled, developmental way, because Luongo's there, he's got his back, they're going to perform with him. If it gives you the opportunity to develop a goaltender as opposed to bring a young prospect into a weak team in the National Hockey League, not that Vancouver was at the time, but and then just sort of throw them to the wolves. I think so. It's both mentorship and putting them in a situation where they can develop with a little bit less pressure.
Well, you're right. It's a good call. I remember Schneider, like it was this amount of games the first year, and then a similar amount of games the second year, but with tougher games, bigger opponents, the first end of back-to-backs against a good team rather than always getting the second half scraps. Like they very carefully brought him along until he was, right there with Luongo pushing for starts in the third year. So that's a really good point by you. But the value of mentorship, I think it is important. And I got to say, like, if you're looking for mentorship on your gear, you should go check out our friends who bring you this podcast over at the Hockey Shop, source for sports, thehockeyshop.com. There is no better place to get set up for equipment that will help you have success now and in the future than with our friends over at the Hockey Shop, source for sports. Obviously, Black Friday is coming up as usual. They've got some fantastic sales. They've also got some new gear coming in. We're going to get into some of that in our gear segment this week. We're going to talk about the True 7X4 Blackout skate. I mean, if you're talking about gifts and maybe the skates are getting a little worn out, Black Friday, Blackout skates. It's almost like we planned it this way. We didn't, folks. It just worked out. But they've got the new Bryans in, lots of new gear, lots of great experts that can answer your question. Don't just go Black Friday shopping all willy-nilly like Darren Millard would on the website. I want this, I want that, I want everything. Ask the experts. They will help you make sure you get gear that will fit either your game or the game ability, playing level, protection requirements of the goaltender you're buying for this holiday season. Check them out. Hockey Shop, source for sports at thehockeyshop.com. And speaking of them, let's go talk to Cam about the true 7x4 Blackout skate in this week's gear segment. Cam, true 7x4, right?
Yeah.
Kind of done this skate.
Did we?
We did this.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure we did this.
Well, what if there's like something new for it?
What's new?
What if it's like a special color?
Oh man, are you back into your Batman era?
It's the Blackout skate.
Oh. So this is what we're doing?
This is what we're doing.
We're doing Cam as Batman. First we did the belt, the utility belt. Now he likes his black skates. So tell me what is new with this 7x4. Is it just the color?
Welcome back to the Hockey Shop Source to Sports. He's Kevin.
He's flustered. So he missed the intro.
I'm
Batman.
Cam. Batman.
Okay, let's go.
All right. So, bit of a refresher for the True Catalyst line of skates. You can see they've got their slick Blackout edition of goal skate. So
This is new.
This is new.
Okay.
Still same technology as what we see as in the old 7x4.
Motion cuff. Got your...
Their version of the Lundqvist loop. Their liner has also been blacked out, which is actually pretty skookum as well.
That's the hydrofoam liner.
That's correct. Still, again, exact same tech and spec as that we've had before previously in the lineup. A good, quick refresher on that. So a true skate stock off the wall. This is giving you, the consumer, an option without going custom to get that true wraparound feel and fit. So within store, we get that same kind of level of thermal moldability that we do get out of their custom skates, can really create this nice wrap and good fitting goal skate.
At a lower price point.
At a lower price point. That's correct.
And now it just comes in all black.
And now it comes in jet black. And that also means this Blackout holder is available aftermarket too as well.
Okay, so if I wanted to truly channel my inner Batman, can I add black steel to this?
So as the keen-eyed Kevin noticed, yes, there's only stainless steel. This is the same stainless steel that is currently on the 7x4. If you did want to upgrade, they do have their black carbon-coated DLC steel. That is available.
Quick release, so you can put it on pretty quick. Nice
swap
and
it
easy.
in, swap it out, but that is available aftermarket. It doesn't come stock on the skate.
Cam, do you sell black laces?
We do sell black laces.
So we could do black laces too, because I want to be fully blacked out.
So
like he's like all about Batman. I'm thinking like more like Kit, you know, Knight Rider. Black Camaro with like all the black everything. Like that's my era.
So those that even know what Knight Rider is.
Which is probably not many of you.
Well,
look it up.
That's okay. So
I'm one of the olds.
I mean,
Knight Rider skate for the beerly crowd. It'll be cool. If you've got any questions about the different options, including the other lines in True, because you've got the full one piece, you've got the 9x4, you've got different options.
Yes.
There's no better place to find out than through Cam and his crew here at the Hockey Shop Source for Sports. Cam, where can they get you?
604-589-8299 or 1-800-567-7790 or thehockeyshop.com.
True, 7x4, blackout skate, almost blacked out. I'm just saying, I would have had black blades and black laces, but we're getting there.
Thanks, Kevin.
I got to say, Woody, you called it in that gear segment. They had just a couple of misses in the skate. They could have had the black steel. They could have had the black laces. How sweet would that have looked? Especially on Black Friday.
And blackout. Like, to me, it's just like, if you're going to call it a blackout, like, those are the little details. And I know that the steel's different. We can always upgrade and put the black edge steel on there. But the laces would have been, that would have been. And hey, listen, speaking of hits, people didn't get it in the podcast other than to hear my reference to Knight Rider, the old show about that. Was it a Camaro or was it, I can't think it was a Trans Am. I'm not an American car guy.
I got Trans Am in my head, but I don't know.
I don't remember which one, but all I can think of the theme music, like dun-it, 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 dun-it. That's all I can think of when I think of Knight Rider. Folks, Hutch worked Knight Rider images into the YouTube video that accompanies our gear segment this week. Just for that effort alone, you need to make sure you check it out. But I would highly recommend every week you go check out the YouTube segment that accompanies this. It's one thing to listen to us. It's another thing to see the equipment. And there is always a video that goes with our gear segment. You can find it on our YouTube channel, all our socials. Every time we go to the Hockey Shop Source for Sports and film one of these, it's video and audio. Make sure you check out both.
Don't oversell the amount of kit that we had in that video. There's a lot of hockey kit, but not a lot of kit the car, which was, by the way, Woody, a 1982 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am.
I had
highly modified.
Did I say Trans Am or did I said Camaro? You had it.
Yeah, I think I had it.
Yeah, like I said, not an American car guy. I had a friend that had one of those in high school, and it was loud, and it was kind of, actually, you know what reminded me? Like, I had a friend with the Trans Am, and it kind of reminds me of playing goal, because all he did in high school was burnouts, and so that smell of getting hit by a puck with rubber, like those are the two things. When I get hit hard enough in the head or off the shoulder, or glancing blow, and you know it, folk, you know it as a goalie, that smell, it's just like pure burning rubber up your nostrils. I go right back to my buddy's. I think it was a Firebird. I think it was a fire chicken that he had in high school, and just lighten up the tires in the high school parking lot because we were that cool.
I still remember being about 10 at a family barbecue or something and announcing that when I grow up, if I have enough money, I either want to have a Ferrari or a Trans Am. And everybody started laughing because I had no clue the gap in difference between those two cars.
You know what the good news is, Hutch? We're doing so well here at InGoal that you can probably afford the Trans Am.
The 1982 one.
Yes.
Yes. That doesn't run.
All right. Time to get back to business here. And speaking of business,
Indeed.
The business of making more saves. We try and help you do that every week at the InGoal Radio Podcast with our ProReads. And I am very pleased to report that we have some new guests. This week's ProReads features Casey DeSmith of the Dallas Stars with a great breakdown we did in the locker room, able to walk into the locker room with an iPad. We walked over 4 different plays and some really good tips on depth management. I think something that is shifting in the league, has shifted in the league, but not everybody has caught on. We've had these conversations with USA Hockey. They used to talk about ready on red when a play attacks to be out and ready when it hits center ice. Now it's about waiting till it hits the blue line. And Casey talked about that being a change as part of this breakdown of a rush chance, a change he made under Ian Clark. Like the idea of being out past the blue ice when the play's at center, all it does, in this case, it's a wide entry, a pass into the entry across the ice. That just would have made Casey make a huge push across and maybe be late on the next pass. And so he sits at 3/4 depth, waits until that pass is made, and then steps out on that guy to the edge of his crease. So it's not strictly a depth management thing in terms of, you know, where you ultimately are in your crease or relative to the edge of your crease when the shot comes. It's about not wasting energy by being out further and retreating earlier than you need to. And that's a trend I think we're seeing around the league, Hutch.
Well, not just not wasting energy, it's also simplifying. The fewer moving parts you have to your game, the fewer opportunities you have to make mistakes. And I just mean mistakes in positioning that can happen as soon as you've got those wider pushes as you were just talking about, or now you have to adjust your depth. It's so easy for you to be off just by that tiniest of amounts. And of course, with the way those guys shoot in that league, you only have to be off by a tiny amount.
Well, it's less is more, right? And it's so we're definitely seeing it at all levels. It's something I think goalies should think about. Like, I really do think goalies should be thinking about this. I mentioned going out with a U18 team a little bit this year, and the one kid moves exceptionally. But when the puck is coming into the zone off the rush, he's like several feet outside of his crease. And it just feels, as well as he skates, it feels somewhat needless. And then the extra distance that he has to move all the time to constantly be in position, as good as he is, the precision required is just, it's making your life more difficult. And so when we see this trend around the league, I know it's something that, even at Edmonton, Peter Aubry was talking about with Stuart Skinner, like, hey, like there's a guy that, maybe skating isn't on the list of strengths relative to weaknesses. Why are you out early on these plays? Like, let the play, what do we say all the time? Let the play come to you. So great breakdown this week of exactly that. plus a few more elements from Casey DeSmith, who, by the way, since the start of last year, statistically has been the best goalie in the National Hockey League, best backup goalie in the National Hockey League by adjusted save percentage last year and this year combined. He moves so well along the ice. We get into that. And, that ProReads segment is all about sort of asking goalies to think through the game, to read the game better. And it happens to be sponsored by a company that we think will help you see and read the game a whole lot better. That's our friends over at Vizual Edge. Vizual Edge. Every goalie has that night here and there where the puck looks huge. You're ahead of every play. You feel calm, patient, in total control. Then there are the nights where we're a half step late. You see it, but you don't really see it. You're reaching, you're guessing, you're fighting it. That's not technique. That's your eyes and brain not processing the play fast enough. Vizual Edge fixes that. It measures how well your eyes track and process the game, then gives you a custom plan that trains improvement. 3 15-minute sessions a week on your laptop or tablet, lying on the couch. It's what NHL goalies use to make the game slow down when it matters most. Goalies like Jordan Binnington, Cam Talbot. From November 21st, so now, right up until Sunday, December 1st, you can get 55% off your first 3 months of a monthly plan or 55% off an entire annual plan using the code INGOAL, all capitals. That's 50% off. And to get 55% off, save the extra 5%. If you're an InGoal member, go to any ProReads on the InGoal website and check out your exclusive member code. You'll save 55% now until December 1st only on Vizual Edge, a training tool used by the best in the game.
ProReads are the best way to learn how to read the game. And I've been speaking to a number of minor hockey associations this week, introducing them to our program, associations that have come on board as InGoal partners, providing InGoal for all of their goaltenders. Great meetings we've had. And I was explaining that ProReads might be NHL goaltenders breaking down saves, but they're still basic and they still apply to even the youngest of goaltenders. There are lessons there for goalies of all ages. I explained to our association partners and all the parents in these meetings how they can use ProReads with even the youngest of goaltenders, sort of modify the approach perhaps. We're not talking about spending an hour a day studying goaltending. We're talking about 5 minutes a week going through the ProReads. Imagine 5 minutes sitting down with an NHL goaltender once a week for a year. What's that worth? I would suggest a lot more than the cost of an InGoal membership. And if you're lucky enough that your association provides it as part of their development program, then that's fantastic. And if you're not, maybe have a word with the goalie development people there and ask them to get in touch with us.
Great advice. As you said, we've heard this from NHL goalie coaches. Like, there is no better way to learn to read the game than through our ProReads program, which is a staple of an InGoal premium membership. Once a week, you get that video breakdown with an NHL goalie. And like I said, we've been able now to take a tablet into the room. I can't wait to sort of share how we're doing that in the very near future with the Coach Now program. And it allows us to sort of go on site and grab one or two from each guy rather than having these big hour-long sessions. It allows us to change up the voices that we're bringing to you each week. And we had Jet Greaves just 2 weeks ago. We got Casey DeSmith this week. And it's going to expand the different perspectives that we bring to you in terms of how these goalies see the game. Doesn't mean you have to take everything they tell you and put it into your game, but you're learning how they approach it, how they see it. And these little tidbits, they all sort of they sort of fuel your computer database. And when you're out there on the ice, some of it will become instinctual, some of it will become stuff that you want to add to your game. Like, there's just so much knowledge there that these goalies are so gracious to share with us. And it got me thinking a little bit, to bring it back to the parent segment, because I know you're going to talk about goalies, who look good in goalie sessions but maybe struggle in games. I'm hoping ProReads is part of your answer, because I got to say, there's a nice tie-in in there to learning how to read the game, and that would be our friends over at Stop It Goaltending. Because when you get a membership to the Stop It Goaltending U app, you also get a membership to InGoal Premium. And now, thanks to our friends over at Stop It, you can go onto their app and it'll link you directly to the ProReads that your membership provides and all the other elements of InGoal magazine. Stop It Goaltending brings 25 years of coaching experience led by Brian DeCord. It's been a goalie, an NHL goalie coach, an NHL goalie scout, and an NHL director of goaltending with 2 franchises, now with the Detroit Red Wings. Puts it all on your phone or your tablet in an app. All that knowledge, as well as the InGoal magazine premium subscription. This week, they've got daily primers about having more fun. They've got a breakdown, Pyotr Kochetkov, as well as a look at Spencer Knight in one of his breakdowns versus Jacob Markstrom, where they sort of look at how they play the game differently and similarly and look at some plays there. Every week, there's fresh content at the Stop It Goaltending U, the app. And like I said, you get a subscription to InGoal Magazine Premium. Best of both worlds, and best of all, they present our weekly parents segment, led by Mr. David Hutchison. Hutch, fire away.
Woody, I hope I don't disappoint you here, because this isn't so much about how can you solve the problem. Maybe we could get into that in a future session, but we'll see what you say when we're done here. This is really just answering the question, why does my child thrive in goalie sessions but struggle in games? A parent recently asked this on the Goalie Parents Canada Facebook group, and it stood out to me because in the comments, one reader, very kindly, thank you, linked to our episode of the podcast with Dr. Saul Miller. And I thought they were absolutely right and on track that this is a common challenge and the mental side of the game plays a huge role in it. Now there's no single answer without knowing the specific goalie, the type of training they're getting, the level they play at, but there's some general thoughts I have as to why this is happening. First and foremost, I want to say it's normal. Many goalies feel great in practice and then struggle in games. And that shift can be confusing and frustrating for both the goalie and, quite frankly, their parents. But it's not a sign that they're a quote-unquote bad goalie. It happens to goalies at every level, and helping them deal with the situation soon is important. Now, number 2, games add pressure, chaos, and unpredictability. In a controlled goalie session, the pace and difficulty are intentionally set at a level that your child can largely manage. So they make enough saves to feel good about their game, but miss enough to show that they're being challenged. And that's just good coaching. Now, of course, most of the shots they see are clear, predictable, and designed to work on specific skills. Well, a game is the opposite. Players are everywhere, sticks and bodies block vision, pucks take deflections, and even at young ages, the play can shift angles constantly, especially for the younger kids, and Woody, us beer leaguers too. One rush might look like an NHL release coming in on you, and the next, like a knuckleball from a falling beginner. It's rarely this distinct, of course, but the unpredictability of the game can take years of experience to handle. Number 3, back to the mental game. It matters a lot. As goalies move up, most can stop anything they see clearly, and the difference becomes the ability to read the game and what's happening between the ears. Even small amounts of worry, self-doubt, or overthinking create hesitation in movement and in processing what's happening in front of them, and hesitation leads to goals. Goalies have to play in a flow state, something maybe we could talk about in the future. As Woody likes to say, with a nod to Top Gun, if you think out there, you're dead. Or perhaps we should say, if you think out there, someone with a striped jersey will be pulling the puck out of your net. And of course, the internal struggle is hard enough, but we all know goalies face immense external pressure from teammates, coaches, and as you get older, team management, who think that more than 1 goal in 10 shots means you're having a bad game automatically, and they let you know it. That's why mindset work with a sports psychologist or a mental skills coach can be a tremendous investment. Ideally, I would say before things start going sideways, because it's much easier to stay on track than to pull a young goalie out of a spiral. Number 4, confidence is fragile, especially when practice and game results don't match. If a young goalie performs well in sessions but struggles in games, they'll eventually start questioning themselves. And once that happens, the game stops being fun, which is the last thing we want. That's not to say we have to protect them from being scored on or losing games, but we do have to give them the skills to handle it and to evaluate the performance independent of results. Us mums and dads need to learn this too. Number 5, reading the game takes years. Goalie sessions teach foundational skills: efficient movement, tracking, save execution, typically clean, predictable scenarios. It's true right up to the pros, and that's okay. The game is built on a foundation of basic skills, but the ability to apply those skills in the chaos of a real hockey game comes through game reps, Goalie coaches are increasingly adding more game-like play in goalie sessions, but it's still not the same. And ironically, at the youngest levels, they can be the hardest to read because the players often don't know what they're doing. We, of course, have mentioned before hearing this about the transition just from the American League to the National Hockey League, where the game is much more predictable. Now, if that's happening to goalies at the highest level of the game, imagine what's happening to your younger players. Playing the game is simply much more difficult than goalie training. Final thoughts. This is a long journey. It takes years to master the skills of goaltending, and it takes time to develop confidence, composure, and the ability to evaluate performance beyond goals against or wins and losses. Support your goalie on the mental side of the game as much as the technical side, and it will pay off for years. Hang in there. It's a rewarding path, but it's not an easy one.
Well said, Mr. Hutchison. See, I thought we might be going a little more to, the goalie practice is regimented and, the game isn't. And, that I'm glad that you dealt with the mental side, because my assumption, not knowing where you were going, only knowing the topic, was, we're going to talk about quote unquote goalie school goalies, a phrase that I hate. But there is possibly an element of that too. Like that can be part, and we said we can save it for another time. But I would think someone who processes the game and reads it instinctually because they're going to school on the patterns of the game, as Mitch Korn would say, it's not a game of shots, it's a game of patterns, might be a little freer mentally to go out there and just play rather than expect everything to be like our goalie skates, where this pass goes to here, to there, to here, and then we shoot at you. And by the way, we shoot at your chest.
I don't disagree with you, but I think it is so layered and nuanced that it's really hard to pull out what it is. If you are that free-flowing goalie just reading the game from a young age and it's worked well for you, I think there's a really good chance you've been in a situation where you can be successful because that mental side develops. You develop that confidence. You know you're going to be okay. Like imagine if you're that goalie who is an incredible goalie school goalie, quote unquote, and now you're stuck playing on a team that gives up 50 shots a game, of which you and I both know a lot of those are going to be grade A's. You could quickly develop that sense of, I don't know how to do this. I'm not ready for this. But maybe if they'd come up on a different team, we'd see them completely differently. How those things of confidence and skill and reading and everything intermingle with each other, I don't know if we'll ever be able to tease that apart, but I think we have to do our best to put our kids in the best situation we can.
Well said. It's funny how much has changed. You're right. There is no perfect answer. Yet the game is constantly shifting around us. So there never will be a perfect answer, is I guess what I'm trying to say, because the game just constantly shifts in terms of the expectations of the goaltender. What works now might not work 2 years from now or even 2 months from now. And our feature guest can speak to that a lot because he played in a whole different era. And now he analyzes the game in the modern era. And he does it at a level that brings joy to his audience, brings information to his audience, not just from a goaltending perspective, but I also don't think it's a coincidence that so many of the people that do the job he does are former goaltenders. Daryl Reaugh, recipient of the Foster Hewitt Memorial Award at the Hall of Fame induction weekend, gave us some time this week to catch up for the InGoal Radio Podcast feature interview. Before we get to him, that interview, as always, is brought to you by our friends over at NHL Sense Arena, who also have some big savings as we head into Black Friday.
They sure do. And it is coincident with NHL Sense Arena 26 being released, which has killer new features. And as we said, it's on sale, and InGoal can help you save even more. That's right, the incredible VR tool for goalies that is so good NHL goalies use it, even between periods of actual NHL games. It is now available with more features than ever. NHL Sense Arena has been updated with new features every month since it came out, and once a year they release a big new edition, and this is it with NHL Sense Arena this year. You get to compete against NHL pros with cool graphics from NHL uniforms. You can earn and collect player profile cards. They've enhanced the 3-on-3 mode with full teams, a full season, new face-off mode. You can build and manage your team. You can take control of the roster and chase season-long championships. Even the new game flow mode has new shooters in it where you can face shots from NCAA players from places like BU and Yukon, from USHL teams, some great players to face in that great new game flow module. The Dangle Pro, of course, isn't just for forwards and defensemen. You can practice your stick handling, dangling around objects in this cool mixed reality scenario. All of that, plus it's got faster reads, smarter AI, louder chirps, real NHL energy, Woody. And now they have holiday season pricing with 50% off. They're offering free shipping now, and they even throw in a nice little green biscuit and Franklin ball that you can use with that new dangle mode for working on your stick handling, just like Joey Decord works, and isn't he an incredible stick handler? Check it out today at sensearena.com, and don't forget to use the code IGM50 to save even more on top of that already great 50% off deal.
And they've got MetaQuest 3 and 3S now. So they've upgraded the bundles. All used to be the old MetaQuest. They've upgraded the headset that you get with it for virtual reality. So just never been a better time to invest, if you've heard us talking about it over the years, than now with NHL Sense Arena. Now, our feature guest is somebody who, if there was an announcer like there is on an EA Sports game for NHL Sense Arena, this would be my choice. Daryl Reaugh would be the guy to do that. And guess what? He's done the EA Sports game color commentary in the past. He's done everything. Worked for some of the biggest broadcasts. Now working for the Dallas Stars. Great career. Played minor hockey here in British Columbia. Played junior hockey, starting in the BCHL over in Cowichan, in Hutch's neck of the woods. Then up to the WHL, where he was an all-star with Kamloops. Drafted by the Edmonton Oilers. We get into broadcasting. We get into the way the game has changed, including his old 15-inch wide pads that he used to wear, the equipment, the effects, the evolution. We get into it all with this week's featured guest on the NHL Sense Arena feature interview on the InGoal Radio Podcast, Daryl Reaugh. Really excited to welcome to the InGoal Radio Podcast. Far overdue as a first-time guest, but as we celebrate his induction into the Hall of Fame, Foster Hewitt Memorial Award winner, Daryl Reaugh of the Dallas Stars broadcast team joins us this week on the InGoal Radio Podcast. Daryl, thank you very much for doing this. How are you?
I'm great. We finally got this done, planned, ready to go.
We've been threatening for a few years. I finally pulled it off.
Yeah, it was pending.
The timing is perfect, however. What an incredible weekend to follow along from a distance. What was it like to live that in person and be a part? And what jumps out at you? You know, here we are just a week later as the moments that you'll remember forever.
Yeah, I mean, when I got the phone call in the summer from Chuck Caton, and I've known Chuck forever, and we worked together in Hartford, I thought he was kidding, because most of our conversations are frivolous and usually trying to make each other laugh and succeeding. So like when he told me that this was going to happen, I honestly thought he was full of it. And he was just like, "Oh, I'm telling you, you're going in, you deserve it." You know, and then it gets announced, and probably there's like three great things, you know, that stood out beyond, you know, everything that was phenomenal. But one was when it got announced and you heard from, you know, all these people that I didn't even know, you know, knew that I did what I do in that went out of their way to say congratulations. And that was unreal. You know, and it happened, it was for days of emails and phone messages and texts. And then you get up there to the actual weekend of it, and the Hall of Fame does an incredible job of laying it all out and, you know, taking care of your family, and then being able to share all that with my daughters, who are now 26 and 24. You know, a lot of these people that were there, they knew their names, they kind of knew them, they might have met them when they were younger, but they had the time of their lives there. So that, you know, that part of it was really important for me, and I was so glad that they enjoyed it. And some of my friends got to know them a little bit through that. And then the biggest thing was obviously seeing, you know, the luncheon, and then seeing your plaque on that wall in the Great Hall upstairs, and next to those names, right? Like, you're like me, like we grew up those were our idols as much as goaltenders were. I said in my speech, and it's gospel. Like, I loved Ken Dryden, but Danny Gallivan and Dick Irvin, and Saturday nights starting at 5:00 right after the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner hour. That was my life as a kid. And then you look up there, and those names and abundance of others are all on that wall, and it's truly surreal. Like, it still doesn't really fully rest in my head easily, because I'm just like, it can't be. Like, I'm not one of them, and yet I have a jacket that says I am. So that was sort of my experience with it, beyond all the other stuff that went on. But those were the three major things that really, really stuck out.
Of all those calls and all those texts, you said some surprised you. Were there any that stand out above others? Not above others, but as more on the surprising side, or names that you didn't maybe expect to hear from?
No, but like just having somebody like, say, Jigs McDonald. Like, I don't know Jigs McDonald, and he went out of the way. We talked for 25 minutes. The legendary Islanders. I can hear him and Eddie Westfall doing Islander games when I was a kid. And, he went out of his way to call. Doc Emmerich did. I got a chance to work with him briefly on Versus and NBC, and, just a wonderful call from him. I mean, it just went on. It was just like a bunch of people that took the time to, A, took the time to say congratulations, and B, supported the actual honor, and saying, yeah, no, you deserve this. That meant the world to me, when you hear from peers and that. And then the other thing that really struck me was that when you look at all the broadcaster names, because the one wall has both the writers in the media wing, the writers, and then it has broadcasters. There's not a lot of color analysts. Like, it's single digits up there. There's a ton of play-by-play guys, and there's some hosts and things like that, but there's not a lot of analyst color men. And that one floored me. I was just like, my God, it's an exclusive little club that I have entered into. So that one resonated.
I was going to say, I didn't realize that is incredible. Did you ever think, like, the passion you have for broadcasting comes through every time I listen to a Stars broadcast, but when you switched from playing and started maybe on that side of it, if I'm correct, it was alongside Jim Ralph in an American Hockey League production called Rinkside. When you made that switch, did you ever envision this? Or was this always the goal after making that switch, to be on the TV side, to be on the day-to-day side with the color commentary?
Yeah, I was fortunate that, there's a lot of guys that don't know what they're going to do when the game isn't loving them back anymore. And, you see guys, they think they want to coach, they think they want to go into broadcasting, they think they want to do this, but they don't really know. Like, I knew I wanted to go into broadcasting. I got injured a few times late where, it was sort of, I guess, a message that this ain't going to be long because of that. And also the opportunity to maybe dip your toes into broadcasting a little bit, because you weren't playing, you're there, you're available. And then that, like, I was still playing when we were doing that Rinkside show. It was cutting edge stuff. We're basically a highlight show for the American Hockey League, and there was nothing out there. This is pre-YouTube. All the young people would be like, "What are you talking about? Anybody can put a show out there now." But back then, it was I think it was Pyman Productions, and we did this goofy little show with some comedy and then the highlights. They ran through the basically the week in the American Hockey League, the second best professional league on the planet, and it gave me my start in that. And then there were a bunch of other things. I did play-by-play in the East Coast Hockey League. I did color in the IHL and with the Detroit Vipers that were like an NHL team then. We're at the Palace in Auburn Hills. They had their own television production inside the arena. Like I really lucked out. And then that was when you get an honor like this, it really does make you, stop for a minute and start looking back, because you don't really do it. You're just plowing forward doing games. But you started looking back, you're like, okay, the Palace at Auburn Hills doesn't even exist anymore. Like it's been torn down. And, you've been at this for a while. And I look back at all those stops and I think of how fortunate I've been to have, done this for as long as I have, obviously. And just some of the stops along the way have been incredible. So yeah, everybody likes to talk about journeys nowadays, your journey, their journey, talk about your journey. Well, my journey is a pretty wild and circuitous one now, but with a lot of stability, because I've been able to do games for the Stars for, 3 decades now. And man, that doesn't happen a lot anymore.
Broadcasts like goaltending seem to be constantly evolving. My understanding is you have it like your passion runs deep. It's not just show up and talk about the game, but you think about the way the game is broadcast, much the way a young goaltender thinks about the way it's played in front of him. What kind of things, when you think of influences on you and your broadcasting career, but also influences that you may have had or a voice in certain things along the way, like how do you look at the game and the way it's being shown and shared to the audience these days?
Well, it changed in a big way, right? When they went to the massive rule changes in the league, when they shut down for a year, like when you think back to prior to that, so you were talking pre-2005, right?
Yep.
As an analyst, you pretty much had, I don't know, anywhere between 45 seconds to a minute on every whistle. Like the games were 3.5 hours long or more, which was tough on a pace of play standpoint, but it was also great for an analyst. It's why football is such a wonderful television sport, right? Because there's all this time to replay and analyze and talk and, cover this and tell stories and everything else, because it's 5 seconds of action followed by 1.5 minutes of nothingness, unless they're going hurry up. So when they made that change, I remember I talked to John Davidson. All us goalies are either goalie coaches or broadcasters somehow in the media, it feels like. And I asked him, I said, what are we going to do? Like, we're going to drop the puck 15 seconds after the whistle goes. And I was hoping I would get some deep diatribe on, and advice in that. And he's like, well, we're just going to have to learn to edit. And I was like, yeah, I guess we are. And you do, like you adjust. It's like, it is a lot. You make a good point. It is a lot like goaltending. They've adjusted. They've grown. They've morphed into sort of a different animal at that position. And we've had to do the same thing. Like you can't stop the game anymore. Like there was a time when you could stop. I had a telestrator. You could draw on things. It was very helpful, but you just can't do it anymore. And the biggest frustration nowadays is there are like 5 things I want to go back and talk about or show on whistles, and between trying to get promos and commercials in, and just the speed of the game and how quickly they're back at it again. Like you got to be, you have to be very selective in what you're doing. And, that's probably been the biggest challenge. I just like the fact that and there's some guys out there now too, that I have tons of respect for, that bring some entertainment value to it too. Like you don't want to be the show, like the game's the show, but you also don't want it to just be a tedious, conversation. And no offense to podcasts, but I don't want to watch a hockey game and listen to a podcast. Like I don't want to just listen to 2 guys talking. I want to hear somebody calling the play, and I want my broadcasters to be aligned with one another, almost like they're partners in a dance. And when you get that, I think it's a really good game. It can enhance it. If it goes the other way, you can ruin it.
As a podcast host, no offense taken, Don't worry about that. As a viewer, when I'm watching, the one thing I crave more of, and maybe it's just because I want the rest of the world to know how hard the position has gotten, is that view from behind the net. We see it on power play sometimes. If I could watch the whole game, and this is obviously I'm in the minority because I'm a goalie, it would be from behind the goalie's net to watch the chaos ensue. How much harder?
How high up?
Oh, that's a good question. See,
How high up do you want that camera?
These are the lenses through which you view it. I'd be curious what your opinion is on it. I just want to see the zone. I want to see the chaos. I want to see. We all like the game looks so easy when I watch it from the press box, 5th level up, and there's the space, and here he's flying into that space. Why didn't he make that pass? It's so much faster and harder down there. So I think the closer, as much as it might be hard to see things, the lower you go. Boy, I remember the 2010 Olympics covering it for Associated Press, and all of a sudden, after all those years of being in level 5, being down behind the penalty box and thinking, my God, there's no room out there. So to be able to capture that a little bit more too, without losing the ability to follow it, I don't know where that balance is. Yeah,
you're hitting right on the head of what I try to hammer with our group, and that there's so many obstacles, but I believe our game should be shown from the end of the rink. And I've said this for a while, but it's, for safety reasons, it's been made impossible because of netting.
Right.
Like there are so many impediments to our broadcast: glass, boards, netting. I think broadcast does an incredible job with the challenges that are in their face in bringing these games. So if I'm going to soapbox it, my two things are, and I talked to our guys the other day about this because where do we go to overtime? I think we're in Florida. So I'm sitting on the plane after, and David Pelche is over next to me, and he's going through the game. And all of the whatever they call it, I think they call it the all 10. I call it the all 12 because I want to include goaltenders. Of course, right?
Of course.
So shows everybody on the ice, and it's all of the video is from in behind the net. It's probably top of or bottom of the upper bowl or something like that where the camera is. But my feeling always was, or certainly now, is at least overtime, 3-on-3, shoot it from that camera. Just cover it from that camera. There's only 6 players on the ice and 2 goaltenders, and it's very flowy in that, and you never lose the puck. Like you see boards to boards, you're going to see everything. A little bit on the near side, I guess you'll lose it in behind the net, but that's it. And but you're dealing with glass and boards and netting up in behind the end of the rink, so it's still difficult that way. And until we get, I guess, drones involved. But
right.
But my feeling on that, right, and you're probably the same way, is that if any kid out there is playing EA Sports, if they're playing video games, that is the angle. That's the way they play the game. And I think we should merge the two a little more. We should think more that way. The other one that just fries me is that we cover the game. We cover the game from the game cam. I forget what the percentage was. I asked my guys. But basically, you've got that one scanning camera at center ice, the game cam.
Yep.
And that's the same way that we covered the game when it first came on television 50 years ago. And we haven't changed. And what it does, and this bugs me, this is my biggest pet peeve in broadcasting, and has been for a while, is that when you walk into, say, a sports bar or something like that, and they've got multiple sports up there, they might have all the sports up there. The most difficult one to watch on television is our game, because the camera's constantly swimming, and the camera's panning this direction, and the play turns around and goes that direction. And it's not easy for your eyes to follow it on television. It's not the way you would watch it if you're there live. And for the life of me, we have not figured out how that cable cam helps a little bit, but somehow you need to be able to have a camera that runs up and down the ice with the play and moves back and forth, not locked in the middle where the camera chases the play. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And I got to say, like the end zone view, I never even thought of the addition of the netting and obviously the boards and just even the logistics side of it. I just selfishly want to see it through the goalie's eyes, so it's easier for me to find clips when I want to do breakdowns with the guys.
But you mentioned about moving down low, and you know this. I think anybody that has covered the games in that or been there as a fan understands, like, there are 3 different games going on the same game. If you're up in the press box, that's a different game than it is in like the mid-range seats, which is a different game. And if you go down between the benches, like I've done games inside the glass or whatever you want to call it, from down there, and that's a different game. And if you've played or you've backed up as a lot as I did in that's basically your position, and you get used to that, and you understand that although it looks like it's chaos and there's no room, and how did he see that? Well, you do navigate through that stuff when you get used to it. But if you take someone from the press box and you stick them down at ice level, they're perplexed as to how a goaltender can ever find that puck and how little room there is down at ice level for those guys to do stuff. It's the craziest thing to experience, those 3 levels of actually just watching our game.
It's so well said, because I kind of had lost complete touch with it being in the press box for so long. And then after the Olympics, it's like a little mental note to remind myself to go down and sort of feel just how fast and how little space there is out there, on a game by game basis.
It's a good,
just going back up.
It's a good exercise, and especially for those of us that cover the game, because you can get sanitized with just how easy everything looks from up above. Like, it looks slow, and there's, why didn't he make this play? Why didn't he do that? Why didn't this happen? And then you get down there and you're like, oh, now I see why that didn't happen. So yeah, it's a very valuable exercise, I think, for everybody to do that. And look, it's why a lot of former goaltenders end up being analysts, because that's how you see the game. The game comes at you and it goes away from you, and you're down in the thick of it, and the game funnels to you. Like, the game funnels to you. The whole game funnels to both nets. So if you have no understanding of that position and what's going on, I think it's a little tougher thing. I think it's why in football, quarterbacks end up being analysts. It's why catchers, pitchers in baseball, again, whatever's central, and in hockey, goaltenders are central to the game.
Is that something like you mentioned, like John Davidson, like some of the legendary broadcasters, yourself included in that list, obviously come from that background? We had John Garrett on the podcast not too long ago. Do you like? I think we all as goalies understand that, even at my low level, like how we view the game. When you talk to other guys that played the position or are now in the broadcast, like is that part of the conversation, or is it all just assumed by this point?
No, I think a lot of it is assumed, but look, you're going to have to talk about the goaltender all game long, right? Which is great. And some guys will go overboard where the whole game is just about the goaltenders, and that can be painful too. Like, there's a lot of other things going on. Everybody's going to sort of default to what they know best. Like, if you have a defenseman in the booth, he's going to talk about D-man a lot. If you have a scorer in the booth, they're probably not going to be very good because they don't understand everything else. Right. Some do. But a lot of them just don't understand anything else other than, somebody get me the puck and I'm going to shoot it and try to score. So I wish more coaches got into our business. I think we need more coaches. Like it would help. I think anytime I see a coach on a panel within a game, you have to balance it out a little bit, because they tend to not have the entertainment side of things. They have the information side down pat, and they can talk about things, they can see things, they can break down things, very quickly in that. But you also have to make it, consumable and enjoyable. And so it is, there's a lot more things that go into it probably than people know. And you have to have patience the way the game is now. Like you truly need to be a little bit like you were as a goaltender, like you can't be in a hurry. You can't stop the puck when it's at center ice. Like you need some patience and then you have to be able to react on a moment's notice, like a split second. And, cause you don't know what's upcoming, and then you got to be able to do that and then get back to things again. So there is, I think, some comparisons between the two, not a lot, but some.
The way the game's changed for goaltenders. I mean, I'm guessing like we can't even compare what it was like for you growing up to compared to what it is now. What are your fondest memories? Like, at the risk of rewinding this too far and taking up too much of your time, like, how did Daryl Reaugh become a goaltender and ignite this passion that continues in the booth?
Well, I mean, I was like 5, 6, 7 years old, and Ken Dryden came on the scene in Montreal, and I was like, I'm going to be him. And in my neighborhood in Prince George, I was the youngest kid. So if you're going to play street hockey, you're going to play one position. None of them wanted to play goal. And you get rock in the cheek and, frozen tennis balls drilled at you.
Yeah.
But you wanted to be a part of that. And I enjoyed it. I gravitated to that. Like, I like the challenge of being like the guy. I don't know what it was. Like, I played defense my first year of organized hockey, and I hated it because I didn't want to be that far away from the goal. I didn't want to be up ice. I always just wanted to be in goal. I wanted to be the backbone sort of thing. And so that was the origin of it, really. And I wanted to be a cowboy, and I wanted to be a goalie. And that was it. I loved horses, and I loved Ken Dryden.
Well, where the careers ended up is pretty perfect then, I would say.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right. The other thing too, Kev, is, and you're probably the same. I don't know a goaltender from my era, and I don't think they're that different now, that didn't just fall in love with the gear. Like, the gear was a huge part of it. I can smell leather and deer hair and felt. I can remember walking into Northern Hardware and seeing the smell of brand new pads. It's like walking into a boot store in Fort Worth, and you walk in there and you can smell that leather. And that is my favorite scent on earth. And I loved everything about gear, gloves, masks. That when Brown came along with new chest and arms, when we had toe buckles back in the day. I don't know if I'd even understand how to strap those. There aren't even pads anymore. I know they call them that, but they're like boards more than anything else in how they work. It's such a more intelligent way of strapping yourself to play the position now than what it was in our day, when the gear was heavy, and it got heavier and heavier as the game went on. The player's gear doesn't gain an ounce throughout a game now. So it's just massively different. They're so athletic. They're so much better trained and coached than we were. There was a fear factor back in my day because there were holes in your gear where you felt the puck, like it hurt. I think a lot of us were masochists. You enjoyed that a little bit. I did. I liked pain sometimes. It meant you got in front of it. You made a save, walking around like a 3-week-old banana all the time with bruises up and down your arm and your legs. Looked like an abused child.
Is that one of the biggest like, it's funny because we talk about the technical evolution of the game, and to me, all the different things that are taught are about, like, as much as we can, is, even though it's gotten so dynamic and you have to have a reactive element and make glove and blocker saves and extend and open up now, that still the principle is, if I can put my chest between that shot in the middle of the net, it can't go through my chest. I might miss with the glove, but it can't go through my chest. But in that area you're talking about where the fear factor existed, you didn't want to take it off the chest. You wanted to catch it in the webbing because it hurt otherwise.
Yeah. That one of the biggest changes is that, like it was so foreign to any of us that you would drop down on your knees, stay down on your knees, and let guys just whistle pucks into your torso and your arms because it hurt. Like, it hurt a lot. And that's why your blocker and your glove were out in front of you for a reason. And you caught everything you could to, just to save some pain more than anything else. And it's changed. Now they use that as an intelligent advantage to just block the middle of the net and devour a lot of those pucks that back in the day would leave a welt. So, that's a major, major difference. I look at that. I look at the way the pads on these guys turn on their legs. Like, our pads didn't turn. So you got to remember, although we cheated, I think my last set of pads were 15 inches wide.
Was that before or after you backed the truck over them?
That was, I think at their widest they were 15, maybe 15 and a half. They were wide. And now, what are they now, 11? And,
11, but they're a lot taller than they used to be for you.
They're taller.
And they rotate, as you said.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that I might have had a pad that, like, say on average it was, I don't know, 13 inches wide, something like that, 14 inches wide. When you went down on your knees, most of that was underneath you. So blocking area, you had maybe half of that actually on the ice. You might have 7 inches, maybe less. And now every time those guys go down, they have the full 11 inches just covered. They basically reduced the 4 foot tall net by almost a foot. There's really only 3 feet high for a shooter to shoot at because of the way the gear works.
Right.
It's just a fascinating, and they play a system. Did we have systems to a certain degree, but not the same way they do now, where it's just so much more intelligent. Now that, they're getting their save percentages buckled a little bit by the way the game is played in front of them now. We were talking about that, you and I, the other day. And, you still have to deal with the psychological effect of the position. It's lonely. It's not that much different now, but they're so much better prepared to handle that. They're coached up mentally and physically on how to play the position. I just find it fascinating. I wish I could transport a lot of what I know about it now and cover and have learned back to when I was playing. Well, that would be a neat trick.
I was just going to say, you'd have to bring
I'd be in the other side of the Hall of Fame then.
You'd also probably have to bring the equipment, because to your point, like, it just didn't function in a way that would allow you to play the way they do. I mean, the way the pad seals the ice and, gives them a sliding surface. I mean, even if you dropped on I think the best way to put it would be, and I'm trying to remember if I got this word right, hopefully I do, but Mitch Korn used to talk about contortion ability as something he looked for in goaltenders early in his goalie coaching career, like the ability to actually contort so that you could seal the ice or you could get a pad flush. And now the pads all do it for them. Well,
I can remember this, this goes way back. I don't know whether a lot of people would even remember, but Vladislav Tretiak, when he was, you go back to 72 and in the 70s, there were rumors out that he had some kind of an operation in the then Soviet Union on his knees so that because he had like a perfect butterfly, so that he could flare his legs out more. It was insane when you think about it now, but he was just a machine of a goaltender that if you gave him today's equipment, I don't know if anybody would score on him. Like, he would be too quick. He would stop everything, I think. And So there was a battle that went on with the gear as much as the shooters back in the day, and the fear factor. I just love the evolution of the position. I don't agree with all of how guys play now.
Yeah.
Some of that sharp angle stuff just drives me bananas, but wouldn't it be an interesting drill to just switch equipment and eras? Have today's goaltenders have to put on the stuff we wore back in the day and say, go have that. I mean, immediately they complain about sticks and how hard guys shoot. Guys shot hard back then too.
Yeah.
But man, that would be an interesting. That'd be great for TikTok or something.
It would make a hell of a social media experiment, but I'd want to make sure the insurance premiums were all paid up before. I don't know. Asking these guys, you probably felt pucks through the pads. I mean, there are still a few guys that, I think Jonas Hiller was the last one that sort of had some stuffing in there, and he would feel the puck on the shin through the pad.
Oh, yeah.
That was routine for you guys back then. These guys, hey, listen, the way the positions, the equipment now, it allows cowards like me to go out there against guys that are way above my pay grade. It's fantastic for me, but it's definitely changed. I got to ask about, you drafted by the Oilers in 84. On the team in 88 when they win a cup, like being a part of that Grant Fuhr, being around that. We talk about the mental side of the game, Daryl. Like, what lessons did you learn from there that even though the game has changed so much, like we hear a lot about Grant and, doesn't matter what the score was, clutch saves. Was that just innate, or were there things you could take away and learn from a guy like that you could even, share with the young kid today and they might learn something?
Yeah, he was the most gifted guy at the position I've ever experienced. When you consider, like, practice was hell. Like, they didn't care, that group. Like, you were in survival mode. There was no goalie coach. We didn't have a goalie coach. So in practice, you have Grant at one end, me at the other, and it was as fast and as skilled as the game has ever been with that group, right? And they didn't care, and Grant never complained. Guys would ring him off his head. He didn't throw a tantrum. He didn't throw a stick. It was just sort of, it comes with the territory. And I can remember, like, we'd go through practice. He didn't give up that many goals to those guys. And, they were not defensive goalie-friendly drills that the Oilers did in the 80s. I can tell you that. And he was just remarkable. His reflexes, power, and his demeanor. It's true. Like he didn't care at all about stats or anything. He just loved playing. He was really, really competitive. He used to drive me bananas though. Like, we'd do the skating drills at the end, and he'd go, "Okay, Razor," he'd say, "let's just go together." And then he'd take off. And I was just like, "You jerk," because he wanted to win. He wanted to win that too. So, he was fascinating to back up and to work with. He was a machine in there. He was playing every single game. Consistency. He was an interesting cat. Obviously one of the best that ever played the position. He doesn't get the recognition because of numbers. You got to look beyond that. And I think a lot of us that understand the position can do that. So, I had the opportunity to see that live and up front, and that's always going to help you. And then when I went with Hartford, I worked with Jacques Caron. That changed my goaltending life. It was really the first time I had an everyday goalie coach. I was in Binghamton, and I'm telling you, that was the best time. I felt like I had mastered what I was going to master at the position because I worked with him. And then, of course, he went on and was in New Jersey, and he was with Marty Brodeur through all the cup wins in that there.
Does he not get enough credit, Daryl? Like, that's a name that, like in the modern goalie coaching era, I tend to lean towards the Waugh, Allaire with Waugh and Benoit Allaire and Mitch Korn and Ian Clark. I keep hearing Caron's name come back. Has he not get enough credit for the job he did? I think people look at Marty being playing a different way and being so instinctual. And maybe we've lost, at least from my lens, an appreciation for how much he was a part of that as his goalie coach.
Yeah, to me, I mean, I've got my own personal history with him, so I'm gonna pump his tires more than anybody else and be biased. But even with Brodeur, Marty played such a hybrid game. He was old school, he was new school, he was stand up, he was butterfly, he was just a phenomenal, iconic netminder. But having a guy like Jacques there all the time, there's an impact, and I'm sure Brodeur would talk about it. I know from working with him what he did for me, and it was, he was one of those guys where it wasn't like, these are my philosophies. You're going to do what I tell you to do. His was more, okay, here are your strengths, and we're gonna emphasize those things. And when you're having an issue with this and that, he was always just so positive, always so energetic, and he transformed my game. I was a phenomenal. This is going to sound like bragging school, but I was a phenomenal goaltender in that time when I was playing in Binghamton and then played in Hartford after that because of him.
I love that. And then I wasn't going to ask this one, but the injury in Hartford, was that, and I still, when I read about it, I was like trying to figure out how that's even possible to get a cut through the hand on a glove. But I guess, again, that's me knowing the modern glove and not the old one. Yeah,
that was a weird one. I basically just skated over my finger. That was, I look at these blockers now and they're medieval in their protection.
Right.
Like it's just like chainmail and metal. It's tough to get anything through that. It's why the modern goaltender can turn his stick hand to his body, and it's like a blocker on the side of the blocker.
Right.
And back in the day, there were, I had my knuckles broken once on a deflected puck that went up underneath the blocker. I had my finger cut almost completely off, my pointer finger on it by a skate. They sewed it back on. I had pins in it and everything through that one. So that was a tough one. But the hamstring one was the worst one. That, we're playing in Winnipeg under the Queen, middle of the game, and routine thing, and things are rocking along with the Whalers and that. And Dave McElwain comes down the wing, takes a slap shot, kick out my right leg, and boot the puck into the corner. And it felt like somebody stuck a rod straight up into my gluteals, up the back of my leg. And it tore the hamstring off the bone. There were strands still on it and that was pretty much, I was never the same after that. I didn't have surgery on it because there's a gray area on whether you have surgery or you don't. The Whalers didn't. And within a couple of years of that, I was a broadcaster. That's how that works.
Well, hey, I mean, as much as I would have loved to go over more of your career, it's probably a win for those of us that get to listen to you play or listen to you talk on the broadcast, because it is truly enjoyable. And Daryl, I can't thank you enough. Your passion for the game and the position comes through every time I watch a Stars broadcast. Your knowledge does too. And I think we're all just better for getting to hear you talk about the game. And I can't thank you enough for spending this much time talking with our audience today. It's sincerely appreciated.
Well, I appreciate all of that. And I've talked so much about myself over the last couple of weeks. I'm glad that I have hockey games where I can talk about other people because of all these interviews and what have you. But I am so pumped that I finally got on this one with you, because I have massive respect for you and the coverage you've given, not only to our position, but to the game. So you're a needed follow. And this was very enjoyable to just talk shop.
Well, I appreciate that, Daryl. Thank you very much. I will say that as you shared those blocker stories with me, the one thing I shared with Jake after interviewing him post-game the other night was, please don't turn the blocker hand over like he did on Elias Pettersson anymore, because I've got a few broken digits, and they all started on the blocker hand with a similar type of escapades, just not as hard as they should.
Yeah. Sometimes instinct kicks in, not preservation.
Yeah, exactly. It goes back to our primal roots as goaltenders when the fear factor didn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Daryl, thank you so much for doing this.
You bet. My pleasure. You know that.
We geeked out a little bit on broadcasting at the beginning, then we got into the goaltending. But it was interesting how those two worlds coincide and intersect, both from an analysis standpoint and why so many of the best, including Daryl, are former goaltenders, but also just like this is a guy who thinks about broadcasts the way a lot of goalies think about their game and the way it evolves and how to make it better for the fans. And so I really enjoyed that conversation. I selfishly always talk about let's get more cameras behind the net to show that view, but I hadn't really thought until he sort of pointed it out. Like that becomes near impossible now that they have the netting in behind the end glass, and it's hard to get a camera in there safely and effectively. So it's it's not as easy as I make it seem, but I really enjoyed that conversation about how we see the game, how the game is presented from a guy who does such a great job making it entertaining and informative for the fans of the Dallas Stars, and used to do so on national broadcasts, Hockey Night in Canada, NBC, ABC. Heard him talk about Versus. He's been on them all and just does such an incredible job. So really nice to see him get honored by the Hockey Hall of Fame last weekend.
Woody, I have a funny feeling that you loved it, especially because he agreed with you about the end zone cameras. But I also think that if they can figure out how to customize the ads on the boards for my home market, wherever a game is being broadcast, somebody can figure out eliminating that black netting.
That's true. That's fair.
In fact, I really hope they do. Maybe they'll be listening now. It'd be really cool because I didn't mind that you geeked out on broadcasting. I'm hoping there's some young goaltender listening to the show today in the car as they drive to the rink for their next game who enjoyed listening to that and is thinking to themselves, I might like to be a broadcaster one day.
Well, the first step to being a broadcaster is being a goalie. No coincidence. We had John Garrett on recently, like some of the best. I loved listening to Daryl talk about Ken Dryden
Steve
as well.
Valquette.
His influences. Yeah, it's just the way we see the game, the way we have to understand defensive zone structure, offensive tendencies as goaltenders, as well as our own position, I think lends itself quite nicely to being able to look at it through the lens. And I think one of the parts I wanted to geek out a little bit on the broadcast stuff is because he's not just there talking about the game and understanding it from all those levels I just mentioned, but he really does think about how it's presented. Like he takes a lot of pride in his work, and I think there's an important lesson there for people. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Like Daryl Reaugh is not a great broadcaster just because of his experiences as a goaltender right up to the National Hockey League, although that plays a role in it. He's a great broadcaster because he puts the work into his craft and thinks about the way he presents things, the way things are presented to you as an audience. That's like it's not an accident. And so I think there's a lot of value in sort of understanding no matter what you're doing. I think at times, I don't want to go old man on this yelling at clouds, but I feel like sometimes, I see this even in my, like there's an element of just show up and expectations that things will be easy and the best work at it. It's not just an accident. Like, yes, there's a ton of knowledge that Daryl Reaugh brings to his broadcast, but he actively works at being better at his craft, and that's what makes him so good.
Well said. It was just really cool to listen to the two of you guys geeking out on the broadcasting game. I loved the the discussion of seeing the game from the bird's eye view of the press box, which is even higher up than most fans in the nosebleeds sit for the most part.
Not just higher up, but more over top of it.
True. And I think a lot of us don't realize that about our view from home as well. And then the difference in the speed of the game when you get down to ice level. I will never forget the first time I got to stand on a bench at an NHL practice, the speed of the game that was happening in front of me. I would strongly encourage anybody who gets a chance to get down to ice level for whatever they can, whether it's a warm-up, whether it's show up for a junior hockey game, which is a little bit more accessible, and get down to ice level and really appreciate what's happening out there. My other tip, of course, is to go to a junior game with your young goalie and stand behind the net and just try and track those pucks.
Like it. I like it. Hey, one last thing before we go this week. Hopefully we'll have Darren back driving the bus next week so you don't have to put up with as much as as you did of me. But you mentioned Dr. Saul Miller in the parent segment.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to give a quick congratulations. I was lucky enough to be there as he was inducted into the BC Sports Hall of Fame a couple weeks ago. A great honor and a very well-deserved honor for somebody who's helped so many athletes with the mental side of the game, beyond goaltending, all kinds of sports, Olympics, but still has clients in the National Hockey League that are NHL goaltenders. So if you haven't already listened to his episode with us, it is loaded with great advice. Really nice to see him honored and inducted into the BC Sports Hall of Fame. He's meant so much to so many athletes and continues to work with NHL goalies to this day. If you haven't already, make sure you check out that episode of the podcast.
Congratulations, Saul.
All right, that's it for us. Hopefully, like I said, next week, Darren Millard will rejoin, although given the nature of the NHL schedule, I make no promises. It is just a busy time for all. We'll be back. In the meantime, keep the skates on the ice, I guess, in the butterfly. He used to ride motorcycles. We always
used to be keep your stick on the ice, but even
we don't do
that
that
with Connor Hellebuck these days. We don't have to do that, do we?
Yeah, no, I know. I was just like, you see a fellow motorcyclist.
Keep your eyes on the puck.
Parkling,
Keep
and
your eyes on the puck.
Keep the wheels down. Like, I don't, we need Darren back. Darren, come back. My sign-offs suck. Till next week, from Hutch, it's Woody on the InGoal Radio Podcast.